The evening sky over Portland was painted with soft gold when Lara Bennett stepped onto the porch and saw her son, Ethan, sitting silently, his eyes fixed on the fading light. He looked peaceful at first glance, but something in the way his shoulders slumped told a different story. Lara had always been able to read him, since he was a little boy who couldn't hide his feelings even if he tried. Now, at 22, he was quieter, older, and harder to reach. But that sadness was still written all over his face. She walked over with 2 mugs of cocoa, the steam rising in the cool air. "Here," she said, handing him one. He took it, his lips forming a faint smile that disappeared just as quickly. "Thanks, Mom." Lara sat beside him, the wood creaking under her weight. "You've been quiet lately," she said softly. "Is everything okay?" Ethan shrugged, still staring at the streetlight flickering across the road. "Yeah, just thinking." She gave him a patient look. "Thinking about what?" He hesitated for a long moment before finally speaking. "About life, I guess. About people. Everyone seems to have someone, a girlfriend, a partner, someone who cares about them that way. And me? I don't." His voice cracked just slightly. "It feels like everyone else has figured something out that I can't." Lara felt her heart twist. Ethan wasn't the type to complain. He worked hard, studied hard, and never caused trouble. He had friends, a steady part-time job, and dreams of becoming a photographer. But beneath all of that, there was a quiet loneliness that he never talked about. "I'm not saying I need anyone," he continued, trying to sound casual, but his voice gave him away. "It's just, sometimes I feel invisible, like I'm standing still while everyone else is moving on." Lara wanted to hug him, to tell him love would find him when the time was right. But she knew that wasn't what he needed. He needed to be heard, not comforted with easy words. "You're not invisible, Ethan," she said softly. "You just haven't met the right person yet." He gave a weak smile. "Maybe, or maybe I'm just not the type people fall for." That line broke her heart. She reached out, gently brushing his arm. "Don't say that. You're kind, you're honest, you care about people. Those things matter. The right girl will see that." He nodded, but the sadness in his eyes lingered. "Yeah, maybe." For a while they sat in silence, listening to the wind move through the trees. The world outside was calm, but inside Laura's heart, a storm began to stir. She had always believed her son was strong enough to handle anything, but hearing the quiet ache in his voice made her realize how heavy loneliness could feel, even for someone as steady as him. After a few minutes, Ethan stood up. "I'm going to bed, Mom. Thanks for listening." She smiled. "Always." When he went inside, Lara stayed on the porch, watching the sky darken completely. She thought about his words, how softly he'd spoken, how much emotion he'd hidden behind a tired smile. Every mother wants her child to be happy, but happiness can't be forced. Still, maybe it could be encouraged. Maybe, just maybe, she could help him open his world a little wider. Inside the house, she walked through the living room where old photos lined the shelves. Pictures of Ethan as a kid, smiling with missing teeth, holding his first camera, graduating high school. Every picture showed the same boy with a spark in his eyes, a spark that seemed dimmed tonight. She sat on the couch thinking. Ethan didn't need pity, and he didn't need advice about waiting for the right time. He needed connection, a reason to look forward to something again. Someone who could remind him that love wasn't just a dream for other people. That night, Lara lay awake longer than usual. The rain started outside, tapping gently against the window. She thought about the years she had spent raising him alone after his father passed away. She remembered the late nights helping with homework, the way he always made her laugh even when she was exhausted. He had grown into a man she was proud of. Thoughtful, patient, caring. But she could see the quiet emptiness that life sometimes leaves behind when love hasn't found its way in yet. Her heart whispered one thing. Do something. She didn't know what exactly, but she knew she couldn't just watch her son lose faith in love before it ever began. She believed love could appear in unexpected ways, through small chances, through people you don't see coming. Lara got up, walked to the window, and looked out at the wet streets glistening under the streetlights. Maybe all he needs, she murmured, is a little nudge. In that quiet moment, her mind began to shape a simple plan. One that came from love, not interference. She would help Ethan meet someone, but in a natural way. Someone kind. Someone genuine. Someone who could remind him that he was worthy of being seen. Outside, the rain kept falling, but for the first time that night, Lara felt something new. A flicker of hope. Maybe she couldn't fix everything, but she could open a door. She smiled faintly, whispering into the dark. Just wait, Ethan. Things are about to change. And though she couldn't see the future, a mother's heart often knows when life is about to turn a page. That night, as Ethan slept peacefully upstairs, Lara stayed by the window, watching the world move quietly beneath the rain. Unaware that a small act of love, soon to come, would change everything. A week later, Laura's plan quietly started taking shape. She didn't want to push Ethan into anything. She just wanted to open a door. One morning, while walking through the park with a bag of groceries, she noticed a young woman sitting on a bench near the pond. Her sketchbook rested on her lap and soft music played from her headphones. She was drawing something. A group of ducks gliding across the water. The woman looked calm, lost in her art. Her expression full of quiet joy. Laura smiled and paused for a moment. There was something warm about her presence. Simple, genuine, and full of life. When the woman looked up, their eyes met, and Lara greeted her. That's beautiful, she said, nodding toward the drawing. The woman smiled shyly. Oh. Thank you. It's just something I do to relax. I'm Lara, she said kindly. I live nearby. I've seen you here a few times. I'm Sophie. The woman replied. I just moved to Portland a few weeks ago. I'm studying art at the community college. Laura's mind instantly began to turn. Art student? That's wonderful. My son's a photographer. He's really into creative projects too. Sophie's eyes brightened. Really? I love photography. It's like painting with light. Lara laughed softly. That's exactly what he says. They talked for a few minutes. About the weather. About the city. About how hard it could be to make new friends when you moved somewhere new. Sophie was kind, polite, and seemed genuinely happy to chat. When Lara learned, she was also looking for a small part-time job to help with rent. Her plan felt even clearer. You know, Lara said casually. Ethan's been thinking about collaborating with someone for his photography work, someone creative who understands visuals. Maybe you two could meet and see if it works. Sophie smiled, a little curious. That sounds great, actually. I'd love to help with something creative. Lara didn't press further. She simply gave Sophie her number and told her she'd pass it to Ethan. On her walk home, she felt a lightness in her heart. It wasn't a big plan, just a meeting. But sometimes the smallest moments can shift everything. That evening, she found Ethan in his room, editing photos on his laptop. His desk was messy, the soft glow from the screen lighting up his focused face. You've been busy, she said. He nodded. Trying to finish a project for a client. She smiled. Well, I met someone today who might be able to help you out. Her name's Sophie. She's an art student who just moved here. She seems sweet, very creative. She said she'd love to collaborate if you're interested. Ethan looked up, surprised. You talked to someone about my work? Lara chuckled. Don't look so alarmed. I just mentioned it in passing. She seemed interested, that's all. He leaned back in his chair, thinking. I don't know, Mom. I'm not really great at meeting new people. Especially girls. You're not meeting her to date her, Lara said with a teasing smile. You're just meeting another artist. You could help each other out. He sighed but smiled faintly. All right, I'll give it a shot. 2 days later, they met at the park. Sophie was waiting under a tree, her sketchbook beside her. When Ethan walked up, carrying his camera, she stood and smiled. You must be Ethan. Yeah, he said, smiling nervously. And you're Sophie. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then Sophie broke the silence. So? Your mom told me you take photos. Can I see some? He nodded and handed her his camera. She flipped through the images, soft portraits, sunsets, streets soaked in golden light. These are amazing, she said sincerely. You see beauty in small things. Ethan looked down, embarrassed. Thanks, I just like to capture moments that feel real. Sophie smiled. That's what art is, making something real stay a little longer. That first meeting was simple but meaningful. They talked about colors, lighting, angles, and how emotions could be captured without words. Ethan showed her how to adjust camera settings, and Sophie shared her sketches to explain how she framed ideas before painting. The conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in months, Ethan forgot to overthink. When he got home that evening, Lara was in the kitchen making dinner. So? She asked, pretending to be casual. He tried to sound indifferent, but his voice softened. She's nice, easy to talk to. She actually understands art. Lara smiled to herself. That's great, honey. You two should keep working together. He nodded. Yeah, maybe. She has this way of looking at things, like she finds beauty everywhere. Lara didn't say much after that, but her heart was quietly full. She didn't expect instant love, and that wasn't what she was trying to create. All she wanted was for Ethan to meet someone who reminded him how to see life again, the way he used to when he was younger. Camera in hand, eyes bright with wonder. Over the next few days, Ethan and Sophie met again, once at the cafe near the river, and another time at a bookstore downtown. They shared ideas, laughed at mistakes, and slowly began to build a friendship. Lara saw the change in her son, the light returning to his face, the way he hummed softly while editing photos, the spark that had been missing for so long. She didn't need to ask how it was going. His smile told her everything. And late one night, as she watched him sort through pictures of Sophie smiling against the sunset, she whispered to herself, sometimes, the heart just needs a little help finding its way. Lara didn't know what would come next, but she knew she had done the right thing. She hadn't forced love. She had simply created a moment for it to begin. And sometimes, that's all love really needs, a single chance to start. The weeks that followed brought a quiet, but noticeable change to Ethan's life. Lara saw it before he ever said a word. The boy who once sat in silence on the porch now woke up earlier, left home with purpose, and came back with a spark in his eyes. His world, which had once felt small and grey, now seemed filled with colour, and that colour had a name. Sophie at first. They met for simple creative sessions, sharing ideas, taking photos, sketching scenes, laughing over failed attempts. But soon their meetings stretched longer. Their talks drifted from art to life, and their friendship began to feel like something more. Lara often caught Ethan looking at his phone, smiling at a message. Sometimes, she'd see him leave with his camera bag, and a hint of nervous excitement she hadn't seen in years. One afternoon, Lara watched from her window as Ethan and Sophie sat under the tall maple tree by the park. The wind played with her hair as she leaned toward him, showing him something in her sketchbook. He laughed, a genuine deep laugh that warmed Laura's heart. It was in that moment she realized that what she had started as a small plan had grown into something real. That evening, Ethan came home later than usual, his cheeks pink from the cold. "You're home late," Lara said, smiling as she stirred soup on the stove. He grinned, setting down his bag. "We lost track of time. Sophie wanted to get pictures of the river at sunset, and we ended up talking for hours." Lara handed him a bowl of soup. "She seems like a good influence." He nodded. "She is. Different. She listens. She doesn't try to be perfect. She's just real." Lara didn't ask more. She didn't need to. For the first time in a long while, Ethan was talking about someone with genuine emotion in his voice. Days turned into weeks, and their connection deepened. They started working on a small photography art collaboration. Ethan's photos paired with Sophie's drawings. It wasn't about money or fame. It was about expression, about finding beauty together. They spent long hours in coffee shops editing their work, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking about everything. And nothing. Sophie brought light into Ethan's world. She teased him when he got too serious, pushed him to take creative risks, and reminded him that not everything in life had to be perfect to be beautiful. Ethan, in turn, made her laugh. A soft, genuine laugh that came from comfort. Not effort. But with growing closeness came uncertainty. Ethan began to feel something deeper for Sophie, and that scared him. He had never been in love before. He didn't know what to say, or how to tell her. Every time he thought about confessing, his heart raced, and he told himself it was better to stay quiet than risk losing her friendship. One evening, as they walked home from the park, Sophie noticed his silence. "You're quiet today," she said, her voice light. Ethan shrugged. "Just tired, I guess." She stopped walking, looking at him with gentle concern. "You've been different lately. Did I do something?" He shook his head quickly. "No, not at all. You're perfect. He paused, struggling for words. "I don't want to mess things up. You're important to me." Sophie smiled softly. "Ethan, you don't have to be so careful. Life's messy. That's what makes it beautiful." Her words hit him deep. For a moment, they just stood there, the world quiet around them. Sophie reached up, brushed a leaf from his hair, and laughed. "See? Even the trees want to be part of your story." Ethan laughed too, but inside his heart raced. He didn't say it out loud, but he knew. He was falling for her. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the way she had looked at him, the sound of her laugh, the warmth of her presence. He knew she had changed something inside him, something he didn't know, needed changing. The next few days were a blur of emotion. He'd smile when she texted him, lose focus when she wasn't around, and overthink every word he said. Lara noticed the shift immediately. One evening, she found him staring at the ceiling in the living room. "Trouble in paradise?" she asked teasingly. He smiled weakly. "No, it's just, I think I like her, Mom. More than just as a friend." Laura's heart swelled. "That's not trouble, Ethan. That's life." He sighed. "But what if she doesn't feel the same?" Lara sat beside him. "You'll never know unless you're honest. Sometimes the risk is worth it." Ethan nodded but stayed quiet. He wasn't sure if he was brave enough to say it. Still, when he saw Sophie again, something in him began to shift. They worked late one evening, finishing the final touches on their joint project. Sophie leaned back in her chair, looking at their work. His photos blended with her sketches. "We make a good team," she said. Ethan smiled. "Yeah, the best." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was warm and unspoken. Then Sophie looked at him and said softly, "You know, I'm glad your mom introduced us. I didn't realize how much I needed a friend like you." He looked at her, his heart aching in the best way possible. "Yeah," he whispered. "Me too." After she left that night, Ethan stood by the window, looking out at the glowing streetlights. He felt both happy and scared. Happy because he finally felt alive again, and scared because love had quietly walked into his heart without asking permission. And as he stood there, he realized something simple but true. Love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it comes softly, through laughter, friendship, and small shared moments that mean everything. Ethan didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing: Sophie had changed him. And whatever came after, he would never be the same again. Winter arrived quietly in Portland, wrapping the streets in silver light and cold air. Snowflakes drifted through the sky like falling stars, covering the houses in soft white. For Lara, this season had always carried memories of family and warmth. But this year felt different. The house didn't feel heavy anymore. It was alive again. Laughter echoed through the kitchen, music played in the living room, and most of it came from Ethan and Sophie. Their friendship had turned into something deeper, though neither of them had said it out loud. It showed in the way Sophie's eyes searched for him in a crowded place, and in the way Ethan's smile appeared the second she walked into the room. To Lara, it was clear. Love had quietly found them both. One Saturday afternoon, the three of them decorated the house for Christmas. Sophie helped untangle lights while Ethan placed ornaments on the tree. The air was filled with the scent of cinnamon and fresh pine. Sophie laughed when Ethan dropped a silver ball and it rolled under the couch. "You're hopeless," she said, smiling. "Hopelessly talented," he teased, crawling under the couch to retrieve it. Laura watched them from the kitchen doorway, her heart full. The boy who once sat alone on the porch was now laughing again, not pretending, but genuinely happy. She didn't say much, just smiled and continued making hot chocolate, grateful that life had finally given him someone to share his light with. As the evening settled in, snow began to fall harder outside. Sophie stayed longer than usual, helping Laura prepare dinner. The three of them sat together at the table, talking and laughing like they had known each other for years. It felt like family, easy, warm, real. After dinner, Sophie stood by the window, watching the snow swirl beneath the streetlights. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan joined her. "Yeah," he said softly. "It really is." He didn't just mean the snow. He meant her. Laura noticed the way he looked at Sophie. It was the same way his father used to look at her, full of quiet admiration and unspoken words. Her chest tightened with emotion. She excused herself to the kitchen, giving them a little space. Sophie turned to him, smiling gently. "You've changed a lot since we first met," she said. "You used to be so serious." He laughed. "You mean boring?" She grinned. "A little. But now you smile more. You laugh. It's nice." He met her gaze. "You did that. You made me see things differently." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the wind outside, and the ticking clock on the wall. There was warmth between them,